Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for attending this afternoon's session. My name is Ultan Sherman. I am the Program Director for the MSc in Human Resource Management and have been so for the last 7 or 8 years. I'm happy to share with you some important information that you might need to make a decision about joining the program. So, the in the business school in UCC, we've been offering HR programs for the last 30 years or so, but specifically we've been offering the MSc in Human Resource Management for the last decade. And we are delighted to say that in the last decade or so, we have, I suppose, been the launch pad for hundreds of HR careers in all different kinds of sectors across the globe. So increasingly, we see more and more of our graduates on LinkedIn getting in touch with us, just sharing the news on their career and where they're working and things like that. And it's a great sense of pride to see, I suppose, how successful many of our graduates have been in terms of developing there's a couple of things to go through in terms of the program that I think is particularly relevant. So the big question is, why would you choose this program? So the program is aimed to develop a career in human resource management. An important thing to highlight here is that you don't necessarily have to have a business undergraduate qualification to be eligible for this program. As long as you have a minimum 2H1 on a level 8 undergraduate program in any discipline, you will be eligible for this program. So we have accepted people onto this program from archaeology all the way up to zoology. They were looking for a change in career. So as long as you have a 2H1 on a level 8 program, you would be eligible for this program. If you don't have a 2H1 and let's say you have a 2H2, then you may be offered a place on the program if you had other qualifications as well and relevant HR or people management work experience. Just to highlight there at the end, you'll see two kind of stickers or two labels that we have. We are accredited by the two leading HR bodies in the world. So this part of the world, Ireland, the UK, parts of Europe and parts of the Middle East, the CIPD is the Chartered Institute for Personnel and Development. They are the accrediting body for all HR programs, and we're delighted to say that our program is accredited with the CIPD. This ultimately means that the CIPD are happy to stand over our program to say that we are providing world-class contemporary HR education to our students. And ultimately what it means is that it is much easier for you to find a job in this part of the world in HR if you have a CIPD accredited qualification. Almost always when you see a job advertised in the broad HR area, it says they're looking for a CIPD accredited qualification, and we have that. And then similarly, the Society for Human Resource Management is more of, I suppose, an accrediting body across the Atlantic in America, but it's globally recognized in America, Australia, and other parts of the world as well. And the same thing applies. They are looking for people who have an SHRM accredited or academically aligned program, and we're delighted to say that we have had those for the last number of years. So that ultimately means that our HR delivery is recognized as being world class, and it makes you much more employable to have this accredited qualification. So the teaching team is made up of world-class researchers and elite HRM industry experts or HRM leaders. So the lecturers and the professors teaching on the program regularly win international awards for the cutting-edge research that they are doing. And we have world-leading experts in HR from both national, international organizations in public and private sector, regularly speaking guest lectures and delivering modules themselves to our students. And I suppose most of all for you guys, why would you invest the money in doing this program? It's very simple. Our graduates work for the world's best organizations, and I'll come to that in a second. So with this MSc in Human Resource Management qualification, you're putting yourself in a fantastic position to get a great job with a fantastic organization, and our employability record over the last decade or so speaks to that. And I think we are comparable to any other program in HR in Ireland, in the UK, in Europe. I think we would stand up against any of them in terms of our employability score. So just to kind of give you a snapshot of where our students have gone on to. So this is just, I said this is a snapshot. This is a small selection of some of the organizations that our graduates are now working with or have worked with quite recently. just to highlight one of them in particular, if you look down there at the bottom in the middle, IBEC, which is one of the leading business organizations in Ireland, they have a management program for graduates, their graduate program every year. It's probably the most prestigious management program in Ireland, for example. And they would take on only a handful, a very small number of graduates every year in different areas of the management discipline, of which HR is one. So it's one of the most competitive, most prestigious, highly sought after graduate positions in our country. And we have had at least one student on that program every year since 2021. And 2 years ago, we got three graduates from our program into the IBEC graduate program. So it's kind of a sign, it's an indication of the strength of our program and how valued industry or how valuable industry leaders believe our program to be. So as I said, one of the strongest selling points of our program is that it increases the likelihood of you getting a good job or a very good job with a really, really excellent organization, both in Ireland here and also around the world. So in terms of what will you learn, what will you experience on the program, I won't go into the minor details of every single module, but just to highlight that we have both the core and emerging areas of HR. So every HR program around the world will have similar topics in terms of recruitment and selection, performance management, strategy, and things like that. And we have them because you can't teach HR without those core areas. But we also have emerging areas within HR. For example, we have data analytics, talent development, and interestingly then as well, we have a creating healthy workplaces module. I think we are the only program in Ireland to have a dedicated module on this idea of creating a healthy workplace, because that's probably the fastest growing area within HR in the last decade. Increasingly now, more and more organizations are having dedicated well-being specialists working for them, and actually lots of areas or lots of employment opportunities in HR are in this well-being space. So we have a dedicated module to our students on that, and we're delighted to see many of our graduates going into this area of HR, this well-being aspect of HR, and finding employment with some of the world's leading organizations. There's a strong practical focus on the program where we are trying to develop real life skills that you will need to work in the HR profession, and they are delivered by both our academic staff but also HR practitioners. So we will develop your interview skills, we will develop your negotiation skills, we will develop your consultancy skills, your analytics skills, your decision making skills, all these practical skills that you need to work in the contemporary HR profession. We nurture these within the program. And I think one of the strengths of the program is I suppose the robust connection we have with industry. We engage with business leaders on real life HR challenges throughout the module, and our view is at least every week on the program across the modules, you should be hearing from one HR practitioner bringing into the classroom, as I said, bringing industry into the classroom with real life HR issues that they are facing in their organization. For example, how can we attract the best employees into our organization when it's such a competitive market? Or they might come to us with a particular case study and say, look, one of the things we've introduced in the last couple of years is virtual onboarding new members of staff, but doing it online. We've never done it before, and we're looking for to kind of get feedback from our students and have a discussion on how to best tackle that. So this idea then of having a strong collaboration with industry, I think one of the unique selling points of the program, I suppose what makes the program different to other programs, is our applied research project. So the applied research project takes place in the summer semester, so the third semester, typically April to August. And the applied research project sees an organization partner with a real life organization on a dedicated HRM project. So just using that example earlier, we have had students work with leading organizations, global organizations, working with them on a project around how to design and develop and evaluate a new virtual onboarding program. So the students have to go in, gather data, analyze the data through surveys or interviews or focus groups, and then they have to, come back to the organization and make recommendations on how they would design, let's say, this virtual onboarding program. And we have this applied research project has been going for the last 6 years on the program, and we have collaborated. I think I checked this last week. We have now collaborated with over 270 organizations in the last 6 years. So we have, I think that's one of the strongest points of the program. And then it doesn't happen all the time, unfortunately, but it has happened quite a bit where students at the end of their project, they're actually asked to work with the organization then as an employee at the end of the project. So we had an employee last year a couple of years ago, who was doing their project on well-being, a project with Lily. And at the end of the project, Lily said, "We really like the student. It's a really interesting project. We see this as an employable position as opposed to a project." And they offered that position to the student. So again, it's a good sign of the importance of this applied research project component of the program. The teaching team consists of award-winning researchers, editors of world-leading HRM journals, and HRM leaders from international organizations. So we can say with confidence that the professors and practitioners teaching on our program are best in show, are best in class. They're world-leading researchers and world-leading experts from industry. And as I said, the program has been the launch pad for hundreds of successful HRM careers around the globe since 2016. We do know that employers are very familiar with our program. We do know that employers are asking our students when they are applying for jobs, "Tell us about your applied research project. What did you learn? What did you focus on? What was the project about? What skills did you develop during this applied research project that you can apply to us here in our organization?" So I think, so successful as our program been in the last decade, that I would say the HR practitioners around Ireland and abroad as well are very familiar with the content of our program, and they are looking for our graduates. We often get regular contact from industry saying, "Would you recommend, or we have a job available, we'd like you to share that with our students," and to make recommendations then on, potential students or other potential projects and things like that. Okay, so if anybody's any questions, I can answer them now if you want to put it into the chat, or if you want to contact me individually, I'm happy to answer any questions. As I said, I am the program director, and you'll see my email address up there. So I hope you found that information session helpful and useful. And as I said, I'm happy to follow up with any of you now or at a later date.
That was brilliant. Thanks, Ultan. I don't see any questions in the chat for the moment, but I suppose, yeah, much like kind of tech, I feel that human resource management, it's across every industry, so it's a much needed skill.
Every organization in public sector, private sector, profit, non-profit needs some kind of a HR function. Some of them are very, very I suppose, very specialized, or some of our graduates go into very specialized area. Some of them go in areas, some areas, but every organization needs some kind of HR function. So it is a very employable qualification to have.
And definitely the CIPD, I think you as you said, you see it in all the jobs out there, especially the senior ones.
Correct. We would be wasting our time offering this program if it wasn't CIPD accredited, given the importance of it to finding a job. But thankfully, we have been accredited and have been for a very long time, and we've an ongoing, very, very good relationship with the CIPD. So it puts our graduates in a very, very strong position, and that's evident in our employability scores over the last decade or so.
Brilliant. All right. Thanks so much, Ultan.
Thanks so much, Marie.
There's one question just after coming in last minute. You mentioned the applied research project. What is the timeline for this? When does the program begin and end?
Yeah. So the applied research project begins immediately after the last week of term. So actually our current students finished the taught content last week. They've now begun their applied research project. So there's a number of stages involved. There's submitting a proposal, gaining ethical approval from the college, and then actually completing the project. So very broadly, the project would start at the beginning of April, and it runs right up then to the middle of August.
Fabulous. All right. Thanks, Ultan.
Thank you, Mairead.